Well, hello and welcome back to Unlocked. This week we're headed to the dairy state of Wisconsin and the self-proclaimed bow hunting capital of the world, right near Iola, Wisconsin, to hunt with Dustin. And Dustin's chasing a deer that he has a ton of history with. And in this area with high pressure situations, a lot of hunters around, small tracts of land, a lot of history is like a couple years. But he knows the deer well. He's putting a plan into place so that he can set up on this deer coming fall, and he kind of identifies them as a target like early in the summer.
What I like about Wisconsin is it's really relatable to a lot of people. When you kind of zoom out and take the big state for, the 30,000-foot view, a lot of hunters, that small parcel, that relates to a lot of people across the Whitetails range. So, like, when you're talking small parcel, what size are we talking on this piece?
I think this one is like 16 total acres where he's at. I mean, we could section it off, but plus or minus that.
Yeah.
And he's dealing with a ton of basically pine tree plantation, and then transitioning out into fairly large tillable.
Gotcha.
And, I mean, if you take a 10,000-foot perspective of it, he's basically in a corner. So big ag and kind of a pinch point where he's figured out how to create bedding and then transition those deer through that pinch point and then out to the bigger ag by setting up a transition area food plot to slow them down as they work their way out.
One thing I've learned about this part of the world is, Casey, you have way more knowledge on this than I do, but it's a huge logging part of the country. And so through that, you have a lot of habitat that's constantly being changed, which then obviously downstream effect of that would be a lot of whitetails that are moving.
Correct.
And so when you're up here in northern Wisconsin, you got to go all in within the first 2 to 3 weeks of the season because everything's changing so much with the loggers and pressure.
And season food changes.
It is.
Drops.
So it's a completely different mentality of where you need to go after it, and you got to get after it early and hard because of those things we just discussed. It's completely different than, like Kansas or Missouri or Iowa because of all the environmental things that are changing because of the logging that's all over in this part of the country.
And for us, like Dustin and I have grown up basically born and raised in this area. And the one thing that changed for us is, everybody wants to hunt the rut. But the problem is in high pressure areas, and what I mean by high pressure is a lot of hunting pressure. We basically gear our entire summer to setting up for the first week or two of the season.
Gotcha.
Because if you don't kill that deer early on, there's a good chance someone else will.
With each passing day, less and less chance you're going to kill him.
Yeah, so, that basically we can kind of narrow our scope of work based on trying to be successful within the first couple weeks of the season. And that's exactly what Dustin did here. He knows where the deer like to bed in the early part of the season.
Yeah.
He knows there's a lot of water source right here. He knows that, prevailing winds make it great for the deer to travel this direction. So if you get west or northwest, it's in their favor.
Yeah. Okay.
So now he takes his setup, sets it up so it's really good for the deer to travel into it.
Yep.
And then he gets basically on the south side of him, so his wind. So it's good for them and good for him.
Yeah.
And it's
threading the needle kind of deal.
And it's a devastating setup.
Let's go through on the Onyx Hunt app and go over where his setup is, his transition zone, and then lay out the water source in his plot.
And
design.
I want to talk about bedding on that too, because that's super important. Early season, how far they're bedded to get daylight encounters. That's often overmissed.
Naturally occurring movement. If you weren't managing for deer here and you're just hunting the property the way it falls, we're looking at deer that bed in smaller woodlots. Is that correct?
Basically.
And then transitioning out into crop fields, or as you guys call them, egg fields.
Egg fields.
Going out in the egg fields, and we're looking at that's just the natural flow. So any kind of manipulation we can do to kind of confirm or really isolate bedding and confirm that it's there, then we can kind of sneak in and take advantage of daylight movement.
Correct. So on this, you can see there's a lazy trail, and there's a small creek bottom way to the north. So what they do early in the season when it's warm out is they get on the north-facing side of the slopes, on the cooler sides, right above water. So they can just, it's a short walk down to get water. It's cooler in that area and heavily timbered with lots of shade.
Yes.
And then
so umbrella effect, to paint a picture for people. Closed canopy, the breeze can
zoom
blow
into
through
that
it.
north side of that knob right there that sticks out above that creek, like specifically that right there. Like
Correct.
That's what you're talking about, north slope, above water. And so many people overlook the importance of identifying that bedding area in early season.
Probably here too.
They look specifically at food source. That's important. However, you've got to be in close proximity to those type areas that are early season bedding. That's north slope, not south slope for late season. And when you have those components and you're in the transition to a good big food source in the egg fields, you're in the chips.
Absolutely.
This is one of the biggest misconceptions, I think, especially for me, like as a young guy taking in outdoor content and kind of, we're all trying to learn and be more successful, and learning that deer that were moving in the middle of the night on your property that were on camera were most likely overpressured, and they weren't on your farm. And so that was kind of something that I dealt with, where it's like, oh man, I'm not putting that much pressure on them. Why are they not moving here? And it ultimately comes down to the problem isn't pressure. The problem 9 times out of 10 is that they're not bedded close by.
It's a distance issue.
Correct.
So if they're bedding way up here, another 3/4 of a mile to the north off the screen, and you're counting on them to get to the food plot before dark, they're not getting there before dark most times.
Well, I think to your point, to add to that, Adam, is when you look at this whole map, look at the density of forestry and hardwoods.
Yeah.
I mean, it is huge.
Yeah.
And so early season is another thing that, as we all talk about, is deer getting patterns, right? And Dustin has got this dialed in that once they'll start getting, creating a pattern, because once they get off this pattern and they change, where are they going to go? There's 1,000,001 choices here.
No doubt.
Because it's not just, us in the Midwest. When I said Midwest, the Iowa and Kansas and Missouri, where it's more bottlenecks and so forth. This is huge blocks of timber, which makes it more and more difficult.
And isn't one of the summertime food sources to the south of this transitional plot pinch alfalfa as well?
It was alfalfa prior. That's beans right there, right here.
This photo.
Yeah, in this photo it's soybeans. But this soybeans right here was the only soybeans in the area.
Okay.
I mean, anywhere near.
But when you look at it, though, when you see you got the beans and the corn, and you see where his set is, where he got them, and he's got that, if you want to zoom in, Casey, that hourglass effect in that plot. So he designed this perfectly. He's taking advantage of the green, and he's coming from the green going to the grain. I mean, it's a perfect transition. It bottlenecks down there in the corner. He's got the wind direction, anything out of the north. I mean,
yeah. In the hunt, you can see he runs his plot screen kind of like this, and like this to allow him to get in, but also keep those deer from traveling that way.
Yeah.
And then he creates a lazy trail basically from here out to here. So he's creating that movement.
Yes.
Yeah.
And not getting downwind
and
of
not
the set.
allowing the deer to get downwind on him.
Yep.
And that's exactly what happens.
If you don't mind zooming in back into that set, like getting a little bit more detail to this, like even now he didn't plant the pines and whatnot, but the blocking nature, this kind of screening nature of that pine really makes that a super secure, like deer are going to transition, but they're going to stage in that plot before going out to the bigger, more exposed ag fields. And he obviously has quite a bit of daylight encounters in close range to that set, but the deer just feel comfortable. You can look at their behavior in the footage and just they're totally calm before they're bleeding out into that ag field.
100%. And then the logging road that runs back to the outbuilding down here, it allows those deer to hit that road at many different locations, but yet they're going to work their way right down to that food plot. The whole thing points to, landing on X there where Dustin has his setup.
Doesn't he have a scrape when there's some?
Yep, right in there. They're spending a ton of time around that.
Which goes right to that little lazy trail too, right? And it all connects and works right there together.
You can see right there.
Keep deer above the wind.
Yep.
Is set.
Yeah. Here's one thing I know, that I really like about the looks of this place is if we were to zoom in and say, how many people have this pine plantation, let's just imagine that it makes 30 acres or, something like this. It's like, if you have 30 acres that look like this, where's the diversity in that? It's all closed canopy. Mm-hmm. But then when you look at this property, and you've got, of course, your food plots, but then you start looking around, you can start to see a lot of little patches, little open areas.
Elevation changes, soil changes.
Places that aren't food plot, aren't crop field, and aren't trees, and you're like, okay. And then you kind of just look around, and you're like, this is really diverse. Like, there's a lot of sunlight reaching the ground in areas on this property, which, knowing how nature works, and just basically we have sunlight reaching the forest floor and it's not being taken up by a tree, we know that there's probably a lot of early succession plants that are there, like in your part of the world, lots of goldenrod, native grasses could be growing here, all things that can help deer feel more comfortable to bed or just feel comfortable to walk through, kind of a comfort cover side. So it's like they're feeling comfortable in this place.
Yes.
It's a perfect early season play. Yeah. And that's where it's like, okay, over time, obviously you guys know the area, the farm specifically, this is the time to shine. And it's like a 16-acre tract, it's not going to be equally good throughout the entire season. It just can't be, right? It's limited on what it can offer, but it's like if it's going to shine, it's going to shine in that late summer transition into fall, and he's played into that. And he doesn't kill in the first hunt, right? He hunts like back-to-back days. Yep. But that goes into like, if you're going to apply pressure, most people early, they're like, I got to wait. It's like, you need to know when that farm is going to shine and when your best chances are. That's when you apply the pressure. And most people don't get out of the gate, in my opinion, screaming hot. They're like, I'm going to go break the ice on some does, this and that. And I'll work into it. No, like if it's the time to shine, get in there and hunt it.
I think it's a true testament of 16-acre farm. He's put in a ton of work in it over a period of time, a lot of years, and he's got it so dialed in that he shot his biggest buck of his life with a bow, and it's a true testament of hard work, understanding the property, and you can do this on small tracts.
Sure, absolutely.
I mean, 16 acres is not very big.
No doubt.
In a high hunter density area.
Yes, right. And also, but he's playing off the neighbors because of the ag fields that the neighbors are providing. So he's providing with everything that they're not, and funneling everything down into that corner because he knows they're going to go there. So let's just play the game. So I mean, kudos to Dustin, because it's a ton of work, 16 acres, and he executes his largest buck with a bow. And I mean, that's not simple to do.
That's a great reminder, too, of the difference between trying to manage large tracts versus manage small tracts. If you have 16 acres or 30 acres or 40 acres, you can really fine-tune that and do all kinds of stuff on that little area and be like, this 40 acres is unmatched to any other 40 acres around here. When you're managing a big chunk, you're like,
it's too much.
It can be too much.
It's overwhelming.
And it's overwhelming. So
you can get very granular. Like details matter here. They make a big difference. Plot screen, mock scrape, lazy
all these
trail.
little things add up.
Oh yeah.
And here's a prime example of his work and his initiative in planning and in being foresight, so that when the moment of truth comes, everything is perfectly placed. It's just when.
It is. And I mean, you can see right there that it's specifically mature pine plantation, which shades out basically the entire forest floor. So there's not a ton of growth underneath there. So like he's able to, by using that, he's able to know that those deer aren't going to be bedded right on top of his setup.
Bingo.
Yes. They're not going to be right there, but they are going to be 100, 200 yards slightly away, which allows him again to utilize that to get into his setup and not disturb anything. So it's ideal. I'm sure. I hope, and I have an inkling that we may be running into this setup again.
I was going to say, this has all the makings of being that perennial spot that we talk about, where it's like, hey, he's trying to make good, great. It has all the attributes of good. He's doing the things to make it great. And if that's a great spot, he's going to have continual success here, most likely.
I think that in closing of this segment is, if you have a small track and you take the time like Dustin has and you dial it and you get it so fine-tuned like he has, it's almost comical to say it's hit repeat for the following year.
Yes.
Yeah.
because it's so good and it's so dialed in that we're, to Casey's point, there's a high probability we're going to be sitting back here talking about the same exact set, because I don't have any shame in hunting the same set year after year if it produces. I mean, some people do. I don't.
They want to walk the pinch. We'll let them walk the pinch.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Same story, different year. Who cares?
who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares?
And this place just sets up for. I've seen properties of the same size, but be late season attraction, where it's like you need pressure in the neighborhood and you need deer to kind of slip through the cracks, feel the pressure, and you've stacked in really good dense cover on south facing or west facing slopes. And then instead of planting clover food plots, you try to plant a grain food plot and fence it off. So it's like, okay, once December 15th hits, we're going to take the fence down and we've got standing corn or we've got standing soybeans. It's like we're just capitalizing on what that property produces year after year and identifying that and setting it up to accordingly.
Never fight the property that it wants to give you. If it's early season, go early season.
Play to its strengths.
Play to its strengths, and you'll be successful.
All right, guys, we hope you enjoy the content here on the Unlock series. But if you're looking for more or you want to see this hunt unfold, be sure to go to the Hunt Collective series here on the YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button. We got a lot of content coming your way. We appreciate your support.